Hey, so good morning and welcome to the Evident Proof demo. My name is Ian Taylor. We run these demos twice weekly at around 10 a.m. on a Tuesday now, and also 4 p.m. on a Thursday London time. The purpose of the demo is to give you an overview of what Evident Proof is, how it works, and what we'll also do is run through a sample workflow of how one of our clients is using the Evident Proof system to store their data immutably. So, what is evident proof? Why is what evident proof do important to businesses? So, evident proof is an enterprise platform for storing immutable proof of evidence. And what does this mean, and why would this be important to businesses? So, the platform and the technology works in a certain way. What we do is we take a hash of your data structure, we convert that data structure into something called a proof seal, which can be stored in an immutable way on a technology called the blockchain. Now, blockchain has some unique properties as it stores data in a decentralized, distributed way across thousands of computers, meaning that that data is stored in a way where it's basically unhackable. So, storing data in an immutable way means it can't be changed, it can't be tampered with, and essentially it can't be hacked. So, because of the way that the evident proof service stores data, what we could do is we can store this data on your behalf, and then later you could take it to be presented in a court of law. So this could be in a scenario where your patent's been challenged, or in an audit, or a compliance scenario where somebody's challenging the integrity of your data, and we would give you proof of your evidence. So we've got a number of clients using the system today. One of them is the largest supplier of government taxi licensing solutions to the UK government. Effectively, their line of business solution deals with the checks and balances around the governance of the issues of taxi licensing. So why would they need to store data in an immutable way? And why is this important to their business or important to their client's business? So early this year, there were a number of articles in the press which stated that within the last year alone, some 150 UK taxi licenses were issued to drivers with criminal convictions, drink driving bans, and many other misdemeanors. So at this point, there's a real burden of proof on the company, and more importantly, really the local government, to prove that they've carried out these checks and balances and that the results were somehow not falsified by people that had managed to gain access to the centralized data storage. So using the evident proof service, they're now able to prove that these checks and balances have been made and that the data hasn't been tampered with. So I can't show you the full line of business application that the taxi licensing software has, but what we can do is run you through their workflow, and we've created a trimmed down version in a standalone demo, which effectively just shows going through the process of storing that data, creating a taxi license, and really runs through their workflow. And then we can see how that works with the evident proof system, converting that to a proof still and storing this in an immutable in an immutable way in a distributed fashion on the blockchain network. So what I'm going to do now is just run through typically how we can create a taxi license and how this data would be stored or sent to the evident proof platform. So essentially what we're looking at here really is just would be a client's line of business application. So although we're creating licenses in this case, we could be creating any type of compliance document that may need to be proved in a court of law later down the line that it hadn't been tampered with, or any data that would be needed to at some point be presented and be proved that that data hadn't been tampered with. So let me just complete a quick license application. So again, I'm going to tick criminal record check performed. Now, in this case, we've got maybe hundreds of pieces of data that could also be imported here and added to this particular proof seal that we're creating, but we're going to keep it simple for now. I'm entering in the details, and again, the identity check that have loads of different types of Word documents, PDFs, lots of other things created that would need to be added to it. So I've now created that taxi license, and essentially at this point, that data, as you can see here, the data has now been created. And if we go back onto the Evident Proof platform, if we go into Proof Seals, we can see here that this data has now been passed through to the Evident Proof solution. So let's have a look at a little bit about the data here, and let's describe it on what we're seeing here as well. So we've got the dispatch header and the dispatch ID. So essentially the dispatch ID is the API call into the service. It's a dispatch of the evidence records to the Evident Proof service. And then we can run through a little bit of structure about how the evidence or the shape of the data of the evidence. Now, it's in a fixed schema, and this is the way we would have worked with you to set up the platform, and we make sure that it's presented to us in a way that the fixed schema ensures that we can correlate between the evidence and proof still stored on the blockchain. And we then got the where and the when. So obviously very important, but the where is an IP address, or it could be a geolocation, anywhere where maybe the line of application is hosted, or essentially it could be a remote location. And we've then got the when. So this is the timestamp, and this is obviously recorded onto the blockchain. So you can essentially see these two core bits of information. We've then got the PSUX reference. Now, this is a cross-reference which allows you to check, and this is the key that relates back to the same data in your database or line of business application. And this could really be a single key or a compound key or an ID or an asset. This is whatever you need to correlate it back to in your source of data systems. So we also have the key and the value, and any software developers will obviously be familiar with this as a way of storing evidence. And in this scenario, as you can see, we're only storing a single key. In fact, a dispatch could store many pieces of evidence. These could be forms, documents, you name it, it could be stored. We've then got the JSON representation of the forms data, and this could be, again, a single field, multiple field, or in fact, it could be any fields or the entire English dictionary if you needed it to be. So the seal, and we have here now, this is the key. This is a hash of all of the data effectively, and what this proof seal is used for is for a checksum verification of the data. Now, none of the data is revealed within this seal, but it does actually prove your data. We've then got the dispatch ID. So we have a receipt, and this is returned to you by the API call, and effectively the receipt is really a method of saying that this data has been immutably stored on the Evident Proof blockchain. And the key here as well is how you could navigate back to that data on the Evident Proof platform. So finally, we got the proof certificate. Now, this is literally a document that pulls together all of this information that we've been discussed, and you can present this in a court of law, and it would confirm that the data was stored on the blockchain in a certain way through the Evident Proof system. So now, a year down the line, we've had somebody come along and challenge the balances and checks that we've done on the licenses, and they've challenged the integrity of this particular data. So we now need to go back and prove that data. So what we can do is we can generate a proof certificate. Now, normally this would be automated through the line of business application and would be just an API call. So when I click on create, a proof certificate is created, but what actually happens is we put in a request, and this goes off to the blockchain, and the checks and the data and the seal, and then finally it checks that it matches all of the source data that we have. So let's take a quick look at the certificate. So as you can see, everything really familiar here. The only two fields that we've got is confirmation that the evidence is verified. As we can see here, it's true. And we've also got a transaction ID, which is really the key to the certificate and can prove all of the data here that we've seen in this taxi licensing example. So although we've looked at a very basic application here of collecting very simple data. The Evident Proof platform, when we work with clients, we set it up around your governance to determine what data would need to be passed through to be made immutably. To be made immutable, and we can also custom the PDF certificates, the proof certificates to fit around a client's particular working environment as well. So that is the Evident Proof platform. If you've got any questions, please put them over on Telegram, and either one of myself or my colleagues would answer. Otherwise, we'll see you again next Thursday, this coming Thursday at 4 a.m. And thank you very much for your time.